Hello. It is the avatar Jasmine again with the wonderful British accent. I want to review what the instructor of this course, Shawn Thompson, said at the beginning of the course to introduce the basic concepts of the course. The instructor started by talking about how our rationality sometimes makes us think in a straight line. That means we assume that what happened in the past will simply continue into the future in a straight line. In this straight line thinking, if there is an upward trend, we think that continues in a straight line upwards. If here is a downward trend, we think that continues in a straight line downwards. But the instructor said that this straight line thinking is contradicted by reality. The reality is that there are unpredictable events that are either positive or negative and disrupt the status quo. Recent examples of these disruptive unpredictable events are the 2008 financial crisis, the election in 2016 of real estate tycoon Donald Trump as President of the United States, and right now, the coronavirus pandemic. Your life and the life of the whole world are disrupted now by an unpredictable event. The instructor called these kinds of events black swan events. Later in the course he will explain more what that term means. For now, it is important to note that rationality needs to be flexible and adaptable. We cannot keep thinking in a straight line. When a disruption happens, we need to adapt to it. Those who adapt to unpredictable events should do better than those who do not adapt. So, in a course like this, we should learn to avoid thinking that makes false assumptions and does not adapt. We should learn a type of rational thinking that is useful and practical for the real world. Let me ask you, do you follow me so far? I see a few puzzled faces, some sleepy faces, but I think most of you understand Jasmine. That is good. In professional communication in this course we want to focus on three basic elements of communication. First, communication that is rational. Second, communication that is ethical. Third, communication that uses effective forms. What does that mean? Communication that is rational is based on facts, data and relevant expertise. Communication that is ethical is truthful, is in context and it omits nothing that the audience should want to know. Communication that uses effective forms or effective structures is clear and unambiguous, it is sequenced in a good order, and it is easy to understand. Whatever way you are communicating professionally, the basic underlying form will be the same, whether it is a business report, a science article, an academic paper or a piece of journalism. The basic form will be the same, although there may be differences in different disciplines. The goal in professional communication is to communicate rationally. But let me add to that. In professional communication we are usually proposing to take some kind of action or not to take some kind of action. For example, should a person buy property, seek a certain type of employment, get a certain kind of education, marry that special someone? The proposal to take action is based on a prediction of the future. The prediction is that you will benefit from buying this property, or you will benefit for this kind of employment, or you will benefit from this kind of education, or this marriage would be good for you. In some cases we predict that an action will have negative consequences, so we should not take that action. Information is practical and useful when it predicts the future and solves important problems in the future. In some cases we analyze the past in order to predict what it would be best to do in the future. We learn from the past how to avoid disaster in the future and how to prosper in the future. So, we might want to predict how to avoid the consequences of global climate change, or we might predict how to find economic stability in an unstable future, or we might predict what kind of employment would satisfy our goals in life. To predict rationally what are the best choices for the future, we need the appropriate data, good reasoning, a good methodology. So, you ask, how do we do that? In class, Professor Thompson did a thought experiment asking whether it would be a good idea to buy a pizza restaurant just off the campus of Thompson Rivers University under the current circumstances of the pandemic. The class was divided whether the answer should be yes or no. And the class gave various answers why it would be a good idea or a bad idea. As the instructor explained, everybody formed an initial hypothesis whether it was a good idea or a bad idea to buy that pizza restaurant under the current circumstances. With that hypothesis, the next step would be to collect the relevant data that would either prove the hypothesis is true or prove that the hypothesis is false. It would be efficient to collect just the data that is necessary, and it would be inefficient to collect lots of data that is not necessary. So, if that is true that we should collect just the data that is necessary, we now need to formulate the questions that need to be answered with the data. From the questions, we can search for the relevant data. But, if we forget to ask a relevant question, we will not search for that data, creating a blind spot. Our answer may be based on only partial data because we did not formulate all the right questions. As the instructor said, this is a process you will follow in doing assignments for this course. You will formulate a hypothesis in the assignment, and you will formulate questions to search for the right data to prove that your hypothesis is true or false. If the data shows your hypothesis is false, you need to adjust the hypothesis so that it is true. I think you follow the ideas so far. Do you have any questions? Okay. I do not see any questions. If you have questions, write them down and ask the instructor later. Let me continue. A professional report is a prediction of what will happen in the future, and the report recommends what it would be best to do in order to achieve the desired goal. The prediction should be based on the appropriate data and the relevant expertise. That would be the rational thing to do. But, the instructor also said that there are other factors to consider in making a rational decision. The other factors are the effects of chance, randomness, and unpredictable events. For example, a rational decision in 2019 probably did not predict a coronavirus pandemic in 2020. The decision could be rational in 2019, but it could be disrupted by unpredictable events later in 2020. Another factor would be the complexity of some systems. For example, the biosphere of planet Earth where you humans live is so complex that it is difficult to make precise and accurate predictions. We can predict what is likely to happen under certain conditions of global climate change, but some precise local details may be difficult to predict. For example, a weather forecaster may be able to predict the weather tomorrow with some accuracy, but the farther the prediction of the weather is in the future, the more likely the prediction will not be accurate. Another factor is that some people can behave in a corrupt way, which makes it difficult to predict a choice. If you are engaged in a financial arrangement with a fraudster, you might get cheated. Maybe you have heard the name Bernie Madoff, the investment advisor who was sentenced to 150 years in prison. Madoff will not be getting out of prison for a while. He was caught. And finally, another factor is the irrationality of people. So, the question is, how do you make rational decisions when you are dealing with irrational people? The instructor gave panic buying as an example of this irrationality. In March and April of 2020, people were frightened by the news of the spreading coronavirus pandemic, and they bought extra toilet paper. Because of this panic buying, there was not enough toilet paper. There was a shortage. So, the irrational behavior of panic buying created the shortage that people feared. There is an empirical discipline that combines psychology and economics to study this kind of irrational behavior. It is called behavioral economics. What it means is that the economic behavior of people produces empirical data that can be analyzed and studied. For example, when people buy or sell houses, that produces data on the price, and data whether the market is expanding or contracting. That is empirical data. The behavior may not be rational, but the behavior produces data that can be analyzed rationally. Behavioral economists can then formulate rationally what irrational behavior is likely to happen under certain conditions. If you are interested in learning more about behavioral economics, there are several books listed in the course bibliography about this subject. Let me finish by telling you human beings something about this. As an avatar, I am a keen observer of you human beings on planet Earth. If today you buy a lottery ticket, your chances of winning are statistically very small, but you still buy the lottery ticket, don't you? Somebody will win the lottery. Why not you? You will feel happy about that dream of winning until you learn that you do not have the winning ticket, so what do? You buy a ticket for the next lottery and keep dreaming. And so it continues. Good luck human beings. Maybe you will beat the statistical odds. Jasmine the avatar hopes you will.